The man, the myth, the legend himself, Tim Sweeney, retweeted a tweet that says, Happy UEFN release month. Can we take this as a confirmation that we get Creative 2.0 this month? I don't believe it until I see it. However, today, to celebrate UEFN release month, I want to see what Fortnite Creative would be possible of if we had no limits. We're gonna take a few of my favorite things that are made in Creative to something that has no limits. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. First thing on the list is destruction. I definitely had my fair share with destruction in Fortnite Creative.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Huh? But I quite vividly remember this clip here from Callum, where basically everybody freaked out and how this was even possible. And the problem with destruction in Fortnite Creative is obviously that we cannot give anything their own physics or their own gravity. So today I want to see how Fortnite props will actually look like if they actually had physics and actual destruction. So I prepared a little something on how this scenario would look like in the Unreal Engine with obviously Fortnite props in my Fortnite Creative world that I created for the Unreal Engine. So let's quickly pick up a gun here, go into first person, and if we now shoot the wall here, which has physics and destruction on it, we can see that the wall is like slowly falling apart. Obviously, this is a little bit unrealistic because obviously, you know, a bullet would usually not penetrate a stone wall like this. Let's just assume that the bullet is very strong, and you can see that it breaks apart and falls down. Obviously, there's limitations to Fortnite for a reason, mainly because of the Switch, and not everybody's on PC, so this would most likely crash a Switch. Same on the other wall here. This one is more like a brick style wall, so if we shoot here, you can see that more like the bricks themselves fall apart here. Obviously, not the most realistic physics for shooting a bullet on a stone wall, but I guess you get the point here. It is really something that I wish Fortnite Creative would have in the future, and hopefully with 2.0 in the far future we get something like this when devices get better and maybe the Switch gets an upgrade, so we can have something like this. And if you think you need rocket science to create something like this, it is super simple to do in the Unreal Engine. All you have to do for that is go into the fracture mode here. So for example, you can think of these little things like devices in Fortnite Creative. So for example, we attach the fracture mode or the fracture device for creative terms to our foundation stage here, and then we can create a new one. And then what we can basically do is go here and select one of these fracturing modes. So for example, if we want to have the rock falling apart in bricks, we can do that here. We can see that the rock is getting fractured apart into bricks. So let's choose actually something that's a little bit more realistic. Let's choose cluster. Now we can see that the rock is fractured into multiple pieces. And if we now start the game, you can see that nothing happens because there's no impact, which is actually fracturing the rock here. So we obviously need something that can fracture the rock. In our case, we can have this gun here. And if we now shoot the rock, you can see that the rock will break apart. Not the most realistic way, I admit, but that is obviously something that you can change yourself then. Alright, so the next one, this is something that bothered me in Fortnite Creative for the longest time, and I would assume that most of you guys are bothered by that too, and that is the render distance, with some of the objects in Fortnite Creative not being far enough. Some of them are just disappearing after a few meters, and that is obviously not a problem in the Unreal Engine. So if we, for example, would take the same example with the rock here, if we go further away from the rock will not disappear, and the rock will never disappear in the Unreal Engine. It will disappear in Fortnite Creative, and that is obviously for reasons. In the Unreal Engine, you can obviously decide that by yourself. So most of you guys probably know that there are levels of details to props or anything that is basically in your worlds. So for example, the rock has a lot more details than, for example, this cube. If we quickly go into the wireframe mode here, you can see that this one over here is the little cube, which just has a few edges and a few vertices, and the rock obviously has, as you can see, a little bit more. However, just having two of them in your game doesn't really make or break your game. But obviously, if you have a lot of them, this might decrease your performance. But especially if they're in the background where they're not even seen or barely even seen, there's not really a point of having the full detail of the rock in the background. And in the Unreal Engine, there are two ways in how you can conquer that problem. The first one is the universally known as LODs, the level of details, which will make it that the mesh that you have has less detail the further away from the camera it is. So for example, if we go into the foundation mesh here and we're going to look at the top corner here, we have the LODs, and if we go here, we can select the LODs each one by one, and we can see we have in total 4. We have the normal one, which is just the standard one, which we have in Fortnite Creative is normal. Then we have the first one being a little bit further away from the camera. We have the second one, obviously now looking more and more blocky, and then the last one is obviously just like really not that polished anymore. But you can really see this if you go into wireframe mode again and see the comparison between the last LOD and the first one. And you can really see the difference here. And this obviously in the grand mass scale makes a lot of difference if you have a lot of these which have a ton of triangles, which then obviously make your game run slower. But you might heard of nanite, and Fortnite actually does use nanite, and I think it doesn't use it in creative whatsoever, but in obviously the normal BR game mode it does use it. But what nanite is doing is basically automating that process, and it's fairly simple to actually make a mesh a nanite mesh, so you don't need to use LODs. All you have to do is go into the settings and enable nanite support. Now if we go into the wireframe mode, you can see that it still does look somewhat the same. But if we enable the nanite here and go to triangles, we can see that the rock is now built out of nanite triangles. And these will change depending on how far you go away from the rock. You can also see this very well if you, for example, download something that is not Fortnite related in our case. So these are from the Quixel library, this like super photorealistic, like real rocks. And if we enable this, these have also nanite enabled, and if we quickly zoom away from these, you can see that the little triangles are changing, and in the end this will be much smoother than any LODs could ever do it. And apparently, and I cannot confirm 100% if this is right or wrong, but nanite is also more FPS friendly, so technically you get better FPS, while also the transition between the different details do look a lot nicer and better. But the last and final question is, what if we really had no limits and that 100k wouldn't be a thing? So what we are going to do is boot up this little demo island here and just place our Fortnite character in it and see if it looks that wrong. And I showed this in a short before, but never in a full video. And I have to say, this does look really cool. It doesn't even look that wrong. I have to admit, this is obviously not the most super realistic environment here, but it does look really cool. This is obviously something that would probably not be possible in Fortnite Creative whatsoever, probably also because of the 100k limit. Would this probably exceed the 100k limit by a lot, and also that we still don't have terrain editing. But I have to admit, it does look kind of dank. To be fair, this does give me a little bit more of a GTA vibe than it gives me a Fortnite vibe, but maybe with Creative 2.0 we will be able to get something like this into Fortnite as well. Alright, here's another one which I found, which is also from a pool demo room or something. And I can only imagine what people are going to do if we get Lumen enabled in Fortnite and all that cool stuff, which is currently not really possible and obviously has some limitations. But if we at some point gonna get that, it is going to be absolutely insane. And if I see things like this, it does give me a lot of hope for Fortnite and the future of Fortnite Creative. When we finally get all the tools that Epic does have, and it obviously enables them for us. It doesn't mean that we get them at the beginning, but at some point having tools like this would be absolutely insane.